Good evening, everyone. I am Utkarsh Punjabi, and welcome back to the Grass channel. Together, we make grass greater than chess. Okay, our video today is going to be quite special because it is indeed a tribute video. The individual we're paying tribute to today is an absolute chess icon, a chess legend, and her name is, yes, I said, her name is Judit Polgar. Judit Polgar is the greatest female chess player in the history of chess. Many consider her to be one of the finest, one of the greatest chess players who has ever lived, male or female. So the story of Judith is that before Judith was even born, her parents had decided that she was going to become a genius. Her parents were both teachers. Her dad was a psychologist and a chess teacher, and they wanted to test the theory that geniuses are not born, geniuses are made. So when Judith was 5 years old, her older sister, Susan Polgar, who is one of the strongest chess players in her own right, was studying chess and taking chess classes in the living room behind closed doors. Judith wanted to enter the playroom and be with her sister playing chess in the living room. Her parents said that, well, all she had to do was learn chess to enter the playroom. So Judith started learning the basic moves of chess at the age of 5 from her mother. When she was 7 years old, she could stand in a town square of Hungary where 15 different chessboards were set up, and she could defeat all 15 players at the same time at the age of 7. By the age of 9, Judith had taught herself how to play blind chess. For those of you that are not familiar with the blind chess, the concept is pretty simple. You either have your back turned to the chessboard or you have a blindfold on, where you cannot see the board, but your opponent can see the board, can visualize all the moves and create all the strategies right off the board, but you cannot. As Judith likes to say, even in blindfold chess, saying checkmate to an adult was very, very fun. When she was 12 years old, she, along with her sisters, participated in the Olympiad to represent Hungary. The reporters who were at the event thought that women's chess, Hungary's team consisted of young girls, was going to be a cute little story. Little did they know they were going to be the story. The Polgar sisters ended up breaking 30 years of Soviet hegemony and went on to win the gold medal, the first gold medal for Hungary in the tournament. A huge part of that was the 12-year-old prodigy, Judit Polgar. When she was playing in round 10, game 10, against her opponent, she was calculating all the moves and she looked up from the board. Who did she see? She saw Garry Kasparov, the world champion at the time, and she was in awe. Later, Garry Kasparov was asked, what did he think of Judit Polgar? Let me pull up his quote. Garry Kasparov, specifically about Judit Polgar, said that he had no doubt that Judith was going to become a world champion, a female world champion, women's world champion, and she would go on to become one of the strongest female grandmasters. But about women in chess in general, hear what he had to say, and I quote, "In the past, I've said that there is real chess and women's chess. Some people don't like to hear this, but chess does not fit women properly. It's a fight, a big fight. It's not for women. Sorry, she's helpless if she has men's opposition. I think this is very simple logic. It's the logic of a fighter, a professional fighter. Women are weaker fighters. That was Garry Kasparov in 1988-1989. Now, there's a famous video of Bobby Fischer. For those of you that don't know, Bobby Fischer is apologies. Okay, for those of you that don't know, Bobby Fischer at his peak is considered to be the best chess player who ever lived. So between Garry Kasparov and Bobby Fischer, you have two of the greatest chess players who have ever lived. And they are indeed a part of our Fab 5 corner below. Here is what Bobby Fischer had to say about women in chess in 1962 when he was 19 years old.
What about this girl, Lisa Lane, that's getting a lot of publicity about falling in love or something and not being able to play? What do you think of this?
Well, I don't know. Doesn't seem like a very good excuse to me.
Was she a good player?
No, not too good. The women aren't really very good players. I mean, I guess I could give every one of them a night and still win easily. Even the world champion, this Russian woman, Bukova, they're all knight easily.
Why is this? Do women make bad chess players?
Oh, they're terrible chess players. I mean, some are better than others, but
Why
they
do
don't
so?
play in men's tournaments. I don't know why. I guess they're just not so smart.
Does this apply to all women, do you think?
Well, I guess so. I don't know. They have never turned out a good woman chess player. Never one that could ever stand up against a man in the history of chess.
Do you enjoy playing against women?
No, I've never played a woman in a tournament game.
Would you?
I'd play him, but I don't think they'd want to play me.
Would you call yourself a misogynist?
Excuse me, what's the definition of that word?
A woman hater?
No.
No?
No.
What do you think of women?
When it comes to chess, not too much.
What about other outside chess?
Well, I don't think they should mess in intellectual affairs, you know what I mean? They should keep strictly to the home.
A woman's place is over the hot stove, eh?
No, they can't cook, but they stay in the house cleaning and things.
What can they do?
Well, it should just be at home, waiting for the man to come home.
Okay, that was the legend of Bobby Fischer. To put it in layman's term, when he says he would give a knight's odd to any woman, that basically means that imagine participating in a race with your hands tied behind. Now, statistically, is it possible that that was a true statement? Perhaps. The strongest female chess player who lived around 1962 times, she would have been ranked around 2,300 ELO points. Bobby Fischer at his peak was ranked 2,800. So is it possible that Bobby Fischer could spot a knight's odds to any male or female chess player ranked around 2,300? Most certainly. But you would be excusing all of the other things that he said. I don't want to pile up on Bobby Fischer because Bobby Fischer is genuinely considered to be one of the tragic geniuses, one of the tragic heroes. If you're not familiar with the story of Bobby Fischer, you should most certainly check it out because his story is something, again, for a genius like Bobby Fischer, he never truly had the Hollywood happy ending, potentially ever in his career. From the time that he got into chess, became obsessed with chess to the moment that he died. It was a very tragic and sad story. Now, Garry Kasparov, on the other hand, Garry Kasparov has gone on to retract his statements, retract his words, and he genuinely became one of the promoters, one of the sponsors, one of the advocates for women in chess. He even worked with the Polgar sisters and has been beyond amazing. And that is the true beauty of a human being, that when you are proven wrong, you can learn and you can adapt, you can learn the new truths about life. And this is what Garry Kasparov had to say in his book. So I quote from my book, How Life Imitates Chess, 2007, I continued, if based on Polgar's games, to play like a girl meant anything in chess, it would mean relentless aggression. And hence the title of this video, Play Like a Girl, and or quote from the legend Garry Kasparov himself. Now, it is only appropriate that Judit Polgar broke the youngest grandmaster who ever lived, and the record belonged to none other than Bobby Fischer. So she became the youngest chess grandmaster, male or female, in the history of planet Earth at that time. Later, Judit Polgar went on to defeat Garry Kasparov. She's the only female chess player, who has defeated the active world champion, the number one ranked player ever. I've also seen some of the articles where they talk about Judit Polgar is the only female player where a number one female player has met a number one male player in the highest of sports competition, and the number one female player has defeated the number one male player. She's the only one to do so. Now, as Judith said, her goal wasn't to become the strongest female player of all time or greatest female chess player of all time. Her goal was to simply become the best chess player of all time. And she wanted to be the world champion. At her peak, Judit Polgar was ranked number 8 in the world. So, yes, you're correct that she failed in her pursuit of becoming the best active player at any point in her career. Also, she never won the world championship like she had aspired to be. But consider this. In 2005, out of 6.5 billion people alive, she was ranked the 8th best player. Not male versus female, not Hungarian versus non-Hungarian, not Jewish versus non-Jewish, simply the best human. So even if you wanted to take whatever attributes from her medical forms, female, Hungarian, Jewish, you couldn't do so. And that's her legacy. Let's take a look at the 7 players, only the 7 humans at the time who could claim they were better than Judit Polgar. Garry Kasparov, Viswanathan Anand, Vasilin Topalov, Peter Leko, Vasily Ivanchuk, Vladimir Kramnik, and Peter Swidler. That's it. Also, if that's not enough, she's the only female player who has defeated 11 world champions. 11 of them, including Magnus Carlsen. Now, Ho Yifan was recently asked. So Ho Yifan is the current #1 female chess player in the world. She is currently ranked, I believe, 75th if you take out male versus female ranking, and she's the only female chess player who's in the top 100. She was recently asked if she could ever see a woman being a world champion, and she said that she doesn't see that happening, at least in the next few decades. What I would argue, like we said in our tribute video to Viswanathan Anand, that chess records date all the way back to 1550. From 1550 to the year 2000, statistically, you could have made the claim that there is no way a human being from India, any Indian, would ever become a world champion. Until 2007, you could have argued, you could have stated a statistical fact that there's no way an Indian would ever become the active #1 player in our human history. But you would have been wrong. Viswanathan Anand became that individual. Now, the same way we talked about, until Anand became the first grandmaster from India in 1988, for the first 50 years since the FIDE started handing out the grandmaster titles, there were only 3 grandmasters from India. But Vishy's impact in India was so huge that that number went from 3 or 0.4% all the way up to 64 just in the last 20 years, so from 2001 to 2020. And that accounted for 5.4% of all the grandmasters who were awarded the title. And from 0.4 to 5.4%, that's a 1,200% plus growth. Just truly, truly marvelous. I would argue the same thing for Judit Polgar. The history will repeat. The human history will show that Judit Polgar has inspired multiple generations of women in chess. And you could already see that. Just about 20, 25 years ago, the women participation rate in chess in the USA, the most progressive, the most democratic country in the world, was less than 0.4%. Today, it is greater than 14.5%. Just marvel at that fact. A lot of that has to do with what the Polgar sisters, specifically what Judit Polgar has done. Now, it may be true, it is true that Ho Yifan is currently ranked 75th. But there is somewhere in the US or somewhere in the world, maybe from the birthplace of Judit Polgar in Hungary, or in some village of India, or somewhere in the US, Canada, Spain, Italy, wherever that may be, there is a 5-year-old little girl who's learning the basic chess moves from her mother, from her father, and she will go on to become the world champion in my lifetime. And hopefully it happens soon. If she hasn't been born yet, that's okay. Maybe there will be future parents who will inspire their daughters, their little girls, to become the world champion and break this current statistical stereotype. And I hope that happens in Chicago, Illinois, in Atlanta, Georgia, in New York, in California, in Florida, wherever that may be. But I hope that happens so I get to witness that, we all get to witness that, and we could come back to this video and prove that we were ahead of the curve, just like Anand was ahead of the curve when he became a world champion in 2000 and when he became a number one ranked player in 2007. Now, as I've said before, whenever you're doing videos like, whenever you're doing tribute videos, you can pick any game from their legendary careers. Same goes for Judit Polgar. Of course, today we're going to review the game that was played in. Let me pull up the tournament. Okay, so the game that we're going to review today was played in 1999 in Dos Hermanas. Dos Hermanas in Spanish means two sisters. And as you can see from the results, for both Viswanathan Anand and Judit Polgar, they didn't have the greatest of the tournament. But let's just take a look at the individuals who participated in the tournament. It was a very, very strong tournament. You had Michael Adams, you had Vladimir Kramnik, Vasilin Topalov, Miguel Cordoba, Boris Gelfand, Viktor Korknoy, Anatoly Karpov, Judit Polgar, Viswanathan Anand, and Peter Swidler. A lot of the names we already saw on the top 100 list, or even just the top 10 list. So it was a very, very strong tournament. And the game we're going to review today was played in round 10 between Judit Polgar and Viswanathan Anand. Now, we could have most certainly picked the game that was played between Garry Kasparov and Judit Polgar, where, like we said, it's a legendary game. Or we could have even picked Judit Polgar defeating her first grandmaster at the age of 12. And there's a funny story behind that. When she defeated this supposed grandmaster, he went to the elevator and he banged his head in the elevator multiple times, losing to this 12-year-old little girl named Judit Polgar. Or we could have most certainly covered the games that she played, some of the brutal attacking games that she played against Alexei Shirov. But my belief is that if you're going to cover a game, cover one game, do it well, rather than covering 10 games or 5 games and just spend 5 minutes each on the game and do a poor job. So I know we have seen that in the Fab 5 corner, you have two players who don't quite have a good reputation in the chess world when it comes to off the chess, outside of the chess, some of the issues outside of the chess. But that's not true for Vishy Anand. So Vishy Anand recently turned 50 years old, as you can see, in December 2019. And this is the wish that Judit Polgar posted on Twitter. Speedy Vishy at age 18, sharper talent than anybody I knew, a role model for the upcoming generation in India and around the world. Thanks for the fighting games. Happy 50th birthday to a unique personality and world champion, Vishy Anand. So they clearly share a very good relationship. And the fact that it is Judit Polgar who has retired, but Vishy Anand is still going strong at the age of 50 versus 20-year-olds basically is just truly amazing. So that's the monologue that we have. Now let's go ahead and dive into the chess part of the game. Like we said, this tournament took place in 1999. It is Judit Polgar who has the white pieces, and it is Viswanathan Anand with the black pieces. And Judit opens with e4. There's a good statistic for you. Out of all of the games that Judit has ever played, over 70% of Judit's games began with e4. So whether she had the white pieces or black pieces, the opening was actually e4. And Anand actually plays c5. So another fun fact for you. Judit Polgar is not only considered to be the queen of chess, she's also considered to be a queen of the Sicilian. To give you an idea, there are 377 games from her career that have reached the same exact position. Or I should say, she has played 377 games when she had the black pieces, and out of 377, 347 of them, or 92% of them, she played C5, transitioning into the Sicilian defense. So if you are someone new to the chess, or even if you are a chess veteran and are ranked, say 2300, 2400 or below, check out some of her videos on Sicilian. There is a reason why she is known as the Queen of Sicilian, not just the Queen of Chess. Okay, so just a fun trivia for you. So we have e4, c5, Sicilian defense on the board, and Judit goes for knight to f3, and Anand replies with d6, strengthening the center, and Judit counters with d4. And of course, Anand obliges, the common continuation, the common theory. C captures on d4, knight captures on d4, and now knight to f6, attacking the pawn. After knight to f6, we have knight to c3, defending the pawn, developing the knight, and now both knights are beautifully targeting the b5 square. So Anand plays a6, taking the b5 square away, and now we have bishop to e3, developing the dark square bishop. And here Anand goes for e6, and Judith, like Gary Kasparov said, to play like means anything in chess, it would mean relentless aggression. She goes for g4. G4 is quite an aggressive move. The common theory, what I mean by common theory, common opening theory is, if you took this position and looked at the rich chess database that dates all the way back to probably 1800s, you would see almost all of the games being played with f3, preparing for g4. But again, that would take two moves, and to someone like Judit Polgar, she doesn't have time like that. Come on. So she plays g4. Again, this is not anything new. This has been played before. This idea was first introduced, I believe, in the 1980s, and earlier was played in 1980s as well as the 1990s. So given the fact that this game is played in 1999, this is a known theory to both Judit Polgar and Viswanathan Anand. Okay, so after g4, we have e5. e5 is a beautiful dual purpose move, and that's why g4 is slightly a questionable move, because it attacks your knight, and now I have two attackers going on your g4 pawn. So the only good continuation, knight to f5. Now I'm blocking your bishop's influence on g4. If you want to capture, you can go for it. I can go ahead and fix my pawn structure, most likely capturing this way. So knight to f5, and Vishy plays a beautiful g6, attacking the knight with a pawn. And of course, Judith continues in her aggressive form, as she knows her opening theory, and does not take the knight back, and instead goes for g5, attacking Anand's knight. So now you get g captures on f5, and I'm sure you're all thinking, oh, now the continuation is g captures on f6. No. Do you know Judit Polgar? So you get e captures on f5. We're on move 10. And already on move 10, just in the opening theory, Judith has given up a knight, a minor piece that's worth 3 points, to Anand's pawn that is worth 1 point. Okay. By the way, to all the chess nerds out there, you already know the theory. The theory is that if you get g captures on f6, black can simply play f4. Now you get bishop to d2. You don't even capture the pawn yet. You go into development mode with bishop to e6, developing your light square bishop. And now you have knight to d5, knight to d7, and c4. The idea behind the c4 is that if the knight captures on f6, and then if the knights get exchanged or the bishop gets exchanged, white wants to have the exchange take place on d5. So then you can capture back with the pawn and you can have a beautiful center control. But of course, black wouldn't do that. So you do get knight captures on f6, and here the game continues. You're putting additional pressure on the e4, and theoretically speaking, it is black who has a beautiful center control of the board, along with a far better developed pieces. So for all you chess nerds out there, that's the theory behind not capturing the knight. So back to our game. So you get e captures on f5, and now black doesn't even bother moving the knight. Black says the d5 move, d6 to d5 move, is far more important to me than moving the knight. And again, this is an opening theory, known opening theory. The idea is, let's actually take a look at it. Why not? So the idea is, if you decide to move the knight back, suppose you play knight to g8. Now there are two ideas for white. One is a very simple one, f5 to f6, but the correct one, the precise one, would be queen to f3, getting that knight back out, knight to e7, and now white has two ideas that would be absolutely devastating. You have knight c3 to e4, and the other is bishop f1 to h3. And you would be putting a lot of pressure on the king, specifically the f7 square. And also consider this. You have spent 3 moves in the opening stage of the game, developing the knight, taking the knight back to g8, and finally developing the knight to e7. That is far too slow. That is way too much of a passive position. So the opening theory says that when white captures, e captures on f5, the move you have to play is d5. And now the idea is very simple one. If you can get d5 to d4 in, you can fork both the knight and the bishop, and you will at least win an additional piece. So what do you think Judit played here? Do you think Judit captured the knight or moved one of the pieces, say bishop to, well, just bishop back to d2? What do you think Judit did? You're wrong. Judit played queen to f3. Isn't she amazing? Okay, so the idea behind not capturing is that, let's say after d5, if you get g captures on f6, of course you can all see it. Black would play d4. You have bishop to c4. You're losing one of the pieces anyway, so you might as well bring out your light square bishop and go for the f7 square, given the fact that the king is wide open, is in the center. You get queen to c7, going after the bishop who's currently undefended, and you have queen to d3, defending the bishop. You have d captures on e3, you're getting rid of the bishop, and now f captures on e3. And this position favors black. So instead, and then again, you're going to lose both of these pawns, if not at least this pawn, this pawn for sure. Okay, so that's why after d5, Judit goes for queen to f3. So there are 143 games in the database where the position was the same exact position was reached, and out of 143 games, queen to f3 was played in 78 of them, And G captures on F6 was played in about 63 of them. So there is a split opinion, but of course, being an aggressive player that she is, Judith knows that it has never been about pieces in chess. It's always been about one thing and one thing only: checkmate. Okay, so after queen to f3, of course, Anand goes for d4. Black still doesn't want to move the knight because you actually end up in a slightly worse position. And let's check it out why that's the case. So we have already seen that, well, taking the knight back and then developing the knight to e7 is just unrealistic, and there's no way you should do that. So what about knight to e4? At least your d5 pawn that you pushed protects your knight on e4, and you would be correct. So you get knight captures on e4, d captures on e4, queen captures on e4, and knight to c6. And given this position, you would definitely favor white. You're getting f5, f6 in, you're going to create a lot of havoc, especially on the king side. And white is able to just simply long castle, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so that's why after queen to f3, the move that you want to go for is d4. So after d4, the most common continuation here is bishop to d2, because if the bishop gets developed to say b4, you want to guard against this idea. And that is indeed what you want to play, or supposedly want to play. But the move that Judith goes for here is a long castle. The idea behind the long castle is, of course, you won't be able to capture because, as you can all see it, I will go ahead and take your rook, and she will gladly take that exchange. So Anand goes for knight to b7. Knight to d7, knight b to d7, blocking any funny ideas, and now you can go ahead and easily capture. So Judith had the same exact position in 2005 against a super grandmaster from Uzbekistan, and he's someone who was a long-time second to Viswanathan Anand, Sergei Karyakin. He has worked with Fabiano Caruana, so all the great players. And that game was actually a part of the World Championship game in 2005, which took place in Argentina. In that game, which took place 6 years later, given the fact that this is a game from 1999, in that game, she played bishop captures on d4. After bishop captures on d4, you get e captures on d4. Here you actually win an additional pawn. Rook captures on d4, bishop to c5, attacking the undefended rook, and now simply rook to d1. And this is another game that we most certainly could have reviewed in our tribute video, because Judith actually went on to create another masterpiece and just a ruthless, aggressive game, as you would expect from Judit Polgar. However, back in 1999, after knight b to d7, she played bishop to d2, and she sacrificed on c3. You get bishop captures on c3, and now we're on move 14. Let's review the game so far. Judith has given up 2 knights that are worth 3 points each. It's a total of 6 points. In exchange, she has gotten 2 pawns that are worth a point each, so 2 points. So to honor Bobby Fischer, who said, I will give you a knight's odd, she is giving a knight plus a pawn odd to Viswanathan Anand as of move 14. Just truly incredible. Incredible. So let's see how the game continued. Here, excuse me. Okay, so here, Vishy actually goes for bishop to g7. What he wants to do is just basically short castle and get his king to a safer position. However, after this game was played, the position was evaluated lots of time, and even in Vishy's time, when this position on move 14 was reached, the continuation is queen to c7, and after Vishy played bishop to g7, it is as of move 14. During that time in 1999, we have a completely new game on our hand. And the argument here is that you have two bad options, just like in our politics. One is short castle, right? Bishop to g7, fianchettoing the bishop, and then short castle. Or the second one is keep the king in the center, at least until you get to exchange a few pieces. And the correct theory is that you have to play the lesser of the two evils. You have to go with the lesser of the two evils, again, just like in our politics. And the lesser of the two evils is keeping your king in the center. Why is that the case? Well, after you fianchetto your bishop and put it on this diagonal and castle, white has a tremendous attack. Can you guys spot it? It is g captures on f6 finally, developing the rook, and you have so much pressure directly impacting your king, and your king would essentially be wide open. So to all the chess nerds, to all the chess enthusiasts, that's the theory. So you might ask, well, Utkarsh, so is queen to c7 the best move? The answer is no. The best continuation is rook to g8, getting a hold of that g file before white does. So you get g captures on f6, giving up one of the knights back, and you get queen captures on f6. It is extremely crucial that you get both your queen and rook on the king side of the board. And finally, bishop to d3. Here the game continues, but the long theory is that it is white who is down in material, so it is white that will have to push for the advantage, but black is actually able to hold things. And once a few exchanges take place, you can most certainly get your king to the safety. If not, keep your king in the center of the board. As terrible as it sounds and goes against chess theory, chess general rules, I suppose, not theory, that is the correct way to proceed. So, okay, back to our game. So after bishop captures on c3, Anand went for bishop to g7. He's like, look, I'm just going to get my king to the safety. And again, Anand is very much a counter-attacking player. He's not one of these players who actively goes into a passive position and just slowly grinds out. Excuse me. Okay, so after bishop to g7, Judit plays an imperfect move. However, it is a prophylactic move. So the correct idea here is, first, you want to capture the knight and then play rook to g1. Instead, she plays rook to g1 first. And it is a beautiful prophylactic move because what she's essentially arguing is that you didn't move your bishop there for nothing, right? That you're going to short castle. So I'm going to be move ahead and play this move and I can capture this knight anytime I want, essentially. However, if Vishy wanted, after seeing rook to g1, he could have most certainly gone for the passive idea, knight to g8, but now you get bishop to c4. And like we said, this is quite infuriating to play, especially as a human, right? Not as one of the chess engines or chess aliens, but especially with these two pawns that are already so far advanced. So it makes sense that Vishy actually just said, you know what? I know you have played rook to g1. I'm okay. I'll just go ahead and castle. And indeed, finally, you get g captures on f6. And I know it's already move 16, and you have been saying, when is she going to capture the knight? Well, on move 16. Okay, so you get g captures on f6. Also note, your bishop is currently pinned. You can't move your bishop because of the pin. So of course you get queen captures on f6. And now Judit basically wants to play one move. The idea is, if she can somehow magically make this e5 pawn disappear, she has this beautiful, beautiful bishop that is just on an amazing diagonal. So how does she attack the e5 pawn? Well, she goes about it aggressively and methodically, as you would expect from Judit Polgar. So she plays queen to e3, and now her idea is pretty simple. Just push f4, opening up all sorts of amazing position. I'm sure you guys can already see it. Don't you wish if this rook weren't on g1? Why? Because now you have some funny ideas across this diagonal. But this is the beauty of chess. This is the beauty of positional play. Your bishop is currently pinned. You can't do anything about it. So what does Vishy do? As anyone else would do, king to h8, getting out of the pin. But now you have the ruthless, aggressive move, f4. So f4, attacking the e5 pawn and saying, I'm not going to give you any opportunity to breathe. Every single move is going to be an aggressive attacking move. So here, Anand plays a suboptimal move. The move that he plays, and he thinks that, okay, I'll just play queen to b6. Let's go ahead and get both of our queens off the board, and I'll be happy, right? Given the fact that I am the one who's up the exchange. The best move, and of course, after queen to b6, Judith doesn't want any exchanges. She would just go ahead and get the queen away, get her queen away, given the fact that she's down in exchange. So unless she's getting some sort of concrete advantage or some sort of concrete exchange back, there's no way she's going to want to exchange. And that's the basic rule in chess. When you are ahead, get as many exchanges as possible, because you can go in the end game being material up. And if you're down in material, you want to keep as many pieces on the board as possible. So you might ask, well, okay, other than queen to b6, what could have been the best move for me? Well, the best move for you and Anand would be, after f4, would be rook to e8. Just getting your rook on a far better file, semi-open file, and you have a lot of advantages here. So after rook to e8, you get bishop to c4, finally developing that light square bishop, and these two bishop pairs are just amazing. As I said in my Vishy video, the way I would describe the bishop pair is, imagine if you were playing chess against an alien from Mars, right? Like if the aliens from Mars came to if the aliens from Mars came to the Earth and they said, we're here to destroy Earth and send us your best chess player, and if you guys win, we'll spare the Earth. If you can imagine the Martian bishop pair having the death beam pointed at your king, this is exactly what the death beam would look like. I mean, these are just monster bishops. But you do have a continuation. You have bishop to h6 going for the pin, king to b1 getting out of the pin, or funny pin ideas. You still have f4 pawn, but now you get bishop captures on f4, and this pawn is doing an extremely good job of protecting the bishop, and this rook, this knight, and this queen are doing an amazing job of protecting the pawn. So you get queen to f3, queen captures on f5, and a rook to f1. Now, this is an extremely complex position. You have such an amazing battery on the f file, on the g file, and like I already said, these Martian bishops, the bishop pair from hell, the devil's bishops, are just doing a great job. But remember, you are material up by this knight, so you would be fine, or at least the engine says you would be fine. In a human chess, well, who knows? Okay, so after f4, like we said, and a suboptimal move by Anand, but if he can get the exchange, he would be up. So indeed, Judit does not go for any exchanges and plays queen to g3 with mate in 1. And Anand here goes for a queen to h6, just tries to hold everything together. Let's check out what would happen if he had played a rook to g8 instead, right? So after queen to g3, going for mate in 1. Let's say if you play rook to g8, you still get bishop to c4 and knight to f6, just trying to hold everything together. Again, this is an incredibly complex position. This has been evaluated after the games were played, like years later with the engine. And everything is essentially hanging, right? But according to the engines, you are supposed to be able to hold everything together. Now, in a human chess, if you ask me, or if you ask any grandmaster who ever lived, would you rather play with black pieces or white pieces on this board? Almost everyone who ever lived would say, I would rather play with the white pieces, probably other than Karpov, because Karpov is just a monster. Karpov was just a theoretical beast. But yeah, no, almost everyone who ever lived would say I would rather play with the white pieces despite being a knight down. So, okay, so Anand played a human move, a natural super GM move like queen to h6, so no more mate in 1 ideas for you, no soup for you. And now I'm sure this is the move that Vishy missed. And of course, does Judit miss that? No. She plays a ruthless, aggressive move like rook to d6. And in chess in general, whenever you can find an open file for your rook, take it. So in this case, you had the open d file and g file. Both rooks are occupying that, versus these two rooks are not doing anything. Second principle, anytime you can get a rook liftoff, and after you have a rook on an open file, if you can put it on a better rank, in this case the 6th rank, go ahead and do so. So to a lot of people, this might just seem like, oh, this is just following chess rules to its to the T. But what you would miss out is just the tremendous beauty, the positional beauty, the aggressive attacking beauty that Judit Polgar creates. And mind you, she's not going up against some noob or some 1100, 1200 player. She's going up against the second best player in the world at the time. And Anand is, I think at this time, he's ranked 2771, 2781. Like, come on. Okay, so do you not think like Vishy knows those ideas? Like, please. Okay, so she plays rook to d6 and putting a lot of pressure on the queen right now, asking, hey, your queen is just overloaded. What do you want to do? And Anand indeed plays the best move of the game, f6. You might ask, well, why is that best? Why can't you just capture, why can't you just block with the knight? So knight to f6 and activate your bishop. Well, let's check it out. So if you do indeed do that, so if you get knight to f6, you have a simple idea. Bishop captures on e5, then Martian bishop. Bishop captures on f5, finally activating your bishop. Now, a beautiful queen sacrifice. Queen captures on g7 with a check. Oh, I should have asked you guys the best continuation. Just pause the video. But okay, that's fine. You get queen captures on g7, bishop captures on f6, queen captures on f6, and rook captures on f6. So bing, bang, boom. Okay, and here, after all the trades take place, it is white who's up a pawn in a completely winning game, given the fact that this king is far safer than this king. Okay, so now the other idea that you might have had after rook to d6 is, well, I can also defend, I can also block with my bishop as well. So this knight can provide some counterattacking chances somewhere else on the board. Let's check that one out as well. This one is supposed to... Oh, okay. You get bishop to f6. I'll ask you to pause the video and find the best continuation for white here. Oh, I should have done that with queen captures on g7 on the other line. But okay, you guys can do it now. Okay, can you find the idea that Judith had in her mind? For those of you that found a rook captures on f6, congratulations, you guys are attacking beasts. So you go into a capture fest again. So you get captures, knight captures on f6, captures, captures, and now queen to g5. Queen to g5 with the idea of just adding a double attackers. And now we can go ahead and exchange because I'll be up an entire piece here. So after queen to g5, the only option available for black is queen captures on g5, rook captures on g5, bishop to g6, blocking the g file with the bishop, and you're already on a nice diagonal, so you want to keep that advantage. And of course, your bishop was already attacked. And now you get bishop captures on f6 with a check. So yeah, no. Now you're not just a pawn up, but you're also up by a bishop. So that is the positional beauty and the positional complexity that the queen of chess, Judit Polgar, creates that most of the people would miss. Okay, so like we said, after rook to d6, Vishy did indeed play the best move, which is f6. After f6, Judith says, okay, fine. You have created a nice brick wall along this diagonal. So let me go ahead and shift my bishop to a different diagonal. And she plays bishop to d2. Again, just appreciate that with every move, she's not letting Vishy go for any counterattacking ideas or improve his position, improve the coordination within his pieces, none whatsoever. Now, the idea is a pretty simple one. F captures on e5, opening up this bishop, and your queen would be totally toast. So Vishy plays the only move that's available on the board, which is e4. because of course you can't capture your own pawn, and pawns can't capture sideways. So after e4, Judith took a moment and she's like, okay, I have a tremendous position, but I am the one who's a piece down. She's down by a knight, like we said. There's one piece on the board that's not doing anything. Let's go ahead and get that piece involved. It is bishop to c4. And as I've said in all of my chess videos, if you don't understand the game, the basic positional play, the basic theory you should understand anytime you evaluate any position, and you would be able to find the ideas 90-95% of the time. How are chess pieces coordinated? What is the relationship between my pieces? How are they interacting on the board, right? Currently, let's appreciate the absolute beauty, like the Beethoven play that Judit Polgar has created with her pieces, with the bishop completely dominating this diagonal. This bishop already has eye on the queen. There is the battery of the queen and the rook, and we already talked about her monster rook on the 6th rank. While that's a sad position, that's a sad position, that's a sad position. This rook has had no future, this bishop has had no future, and you have only developed this knight to basically block the pin earlier. So that's the difference between when you play a masterpiece, this is what you see from some of the top super GMs. And again, I want to repeat, she's playing this against Vishy Anand, who I consider to be one of the top 5 chess players who has ever lived. So, oh, props to you, just with relentless aggression. I was going to say ruthless aggression. I guess both applies. Okay, so also, if you are foolish enough to somehow move this bishop, which I just recognized, let's say if this g7 bishop weren't there, you could totally go for some queen sacrifice idea. If you get rook captures, that would be a mate in one, right? Because this bishop is already guarding that square. So, like I said, appreciate the positional play. And anytime you are playing any games or evaluating someone else's game, that's how it's the position that matters more than anything else. Okay, so after bishop to c4, Anand plays b5, attacking the bishop and trying to free up the rook and the bishop. And now you get bishop to e6. So, like I said, this attacking the knight. Like I said, after this game was played, this position has been evaluated multiple times with more and more powerful engines. The best continuation here is supposed to be bishop to d5, attacking the rook. Now you get rook to b8, and now bishop to e3, leaving black essentially without any moves. How are you going to develop any pieces, right? Currently, this bishop is guarding the knight, so you can't move your bishop or activate your bishop. This rook practically has no square. You can't go here. You can't go here. This bishop, like we said, has been pinned since the game essentially began. This queen has gone into a passive play and is never going to get out of basically these 3 squares. And you have a rook, but you essentially don't have a rook. So white is supposed to just improve the position and just dominate this game. You can just give black a free move and you would still win the game. So the best continuation, right? So for anyone who gets into this position, if you are an international master, a national master, or a grandmaster, or a super grandmaster, the novelty that we're all waiting for in this position in b5 is bishop to d5. Instead, Judith played bishop to e6. And after bishop to e6, Anand played a human move like rook to a7. The best continuation for Anand would have been knight to c5. And after knight to c5, you have two ideas for white, and we can check out both of them. One of them is, well, can I go ahead and move my bishop back to d5 and attack the rook? Most certainly. The other idea, the straightforward idea, is bishop to e3, attacking the knight and going for this diagonal because the knight is currently undefended. Let's check out both of them. Let's first check out, which one do you want to check out? Let's check out bishop to e3 first, attacking the undefended knight. So after bishop to e3, you get knight to b7, attacking the rook, and rook just goes back to d2, and the game continues. The idea behind this is that you want to shift your rook to g2, and now you have three pieces battering on the g file. And this would be quite awful. Okay, so that's one idea. But again, because you're up by a knight and you're able to activate your pieces, this is somehow supposed to be slightly better. The other straightforward idea you might have had is, okay, after knight to c5, I'm going to tell black that, hey, why don't you go ahead and capture me on... So when you play bishop to e3, you're basically inviting black to capture the bishop on e6. And of course, black would not be foolish enough to fall for that, because if black did, black would just capture with the pawn. You move up the pawn and you're getting a free queen. So of course you have to be extremely careful of not capturing on e6 when bishop to e3 is played, and the right move is bishop to b7. Okay, so the other idea that we talked about in this position is bishop to d5. So after bishop to d5, you go into a capture fest. You get captures, activating your light square bishop. Bishop captures on a8, and again, in this game, at least in this position, it is perfectly fine you to give back the material because you want to activate your pieces and you just don't want to go into a slow, painful death. So you get a rook captures on a8, rook to d5, forking the knight, forking the bishop, and find the best continuation for black here. There's a very, very nice, sneaky tactical idea. So there are 2 or 3 moves that you have to find in this position. Okay, so congratulations to everyone that found this idea, because this is not an easy idea by any means. The continuation is knight to e6. So like I said, you have to find 2 or 3 moves in a row. You get rook captures on f5. And now this is the move that you had to find, knight to d4. With the idea of jumping to knight to e2. And guess what? We have a royal family fork. You're forking the king, you're forking the rook, you're forking the queen, and you're forking, this rook's. At least for right now. So a royal fork, 1 fork for 3 people. That's why it's called a royal family fork. Oh, disgusting. Okay, so the best continuation for white here would be queen to g4, going for that captures, and you get knight captures on f5, queen captures on f5, queen captures on h2, and bishop to e3. And this is supposed to be winning right here. You had 2 attacks. So by playing bishop to e3, you're getting away from the queen and you're defending your rook. And yeah, again, this is an insane amount of calculation, right? As you saw, if you can't, or if you didn't find this in your preparation, there is no way for you to just figure it out over the board. So that's why, to go back to our game, after bishop to e6, Vishy went with a more human move, which is rook to a7, which makes a lot of sense. You have a lot of pressure currently on your knight and your bishop. So if you can develop your knight to say c5 and get some additional support to the g7 bishop and freeing up this bishop, freeing up your light square bishop, that would be very, very nice. Okay, so, okay. Now Judith just plays an insane move. She plays, I don't think you would be able to even spot it. She plays rook to c6. She claims, and if you want, you can believe her, but I think she's just lying. She believes that she had an intuition, or she had the sixth sense, that the c7 square is going to be very important in the battle in this position. If she can control the c7 square, then black's position just collapses. You don't find a move like this. You don't have intuition or sixth sense to find rook c6. I mean, just no. Like, I think she's lying. She's just one of the chess angels, or she's just a chess goddess, and she's just making a mockery of all the mere mortals like you and I. So poor Anand. I mean, yeah. So after rook to c6, Anand goes for a5. Again, makes a lot of sense. If you can now get b4 and a4 in, you can develop your rook to a5 and finally go for the fifth rank, and you can open up the position a little bit. But does Judith allow that? Of course she doesn't. She goes for bishop to e3. Judith does not let Anand rest easy. So after bishop to e3, the only place you can go with the rook is rook to b7, and Judith now further improves the position and goes for bishop to d5. And this is just beautiful, beautiful play. The idea behind bishop to d5 is that now I can capture your bishop, and then I'll take your rook. So I get a free piece. I already have way too much advantage in the position. I'll gladly take this. So Anand plays the only move that's available and plays rook to b8. And guess what Judith does now? She plays rook to c7. So let's recap. Not only did she bully Anand out of not getting his rook on rook to c7, she bullied him out of getting his rook out of the 7th rank entirely. And oh, if that weren't enough, she said, how about this? I'm going to place my rook on c7. Like I said, if you want to believe her, you can believe her that she had an intuition or sixth sense. I just think she's just one of the chess goddesses, and she's making an absolute mockery out of human beings. And that is not very nice. And as I often say, Judit Polgar is one of the finest speakers. She just has this beautiful aura, just amazing charisma about her. But when you play her on a chessboard, do not take her lightly. There's a reason why Garry Kasparov had to go back on his words and had to say that this woman, play like a girl, equates to relentless aggression. And you can already see it, right? Like, she's bullying a 2780 player, the second best player in the world, out of 6.5 billion people, whatever that number is. Okay, so rook to c7, and like we have already said, she's just controlling a lot of the squares on the seventh rank, and if I were Vishy, or if any other player were Vishy, they would have just resigned. It's like, hey, just put me out of my misery. But Vishy says, okay, fine, I'll play b4. If I can get one extra move, I can at least activate my rook. But what do you think the evil chess goddess did? She played b3, a quiet move. So, okay. Here, Judith basically says that after she played b3, she saw Vishy's face drop, and he just lost all of the hopes. And sometimes it is not about all the ruthless, aggressive attacking moves and playing the most precise, calculated moves. Sometimes it is evaluating what your opponent wants to do and playing a quiet, slow move that just kills your opponent's chances and heart and everything. And Anand's second at the time admitted that when Judith played b3, Vishy just gave up. And the rest of the moves are just like, okay, fine. So after b3, Vishy says, okay, fine, I'll play rook to b5. I'll try to go for some ideas. And please note that if Vishy goes for an idea like rook to d8, there is a simple answer to this: bishop to c6. And like we showed previously, this is a completely zugzwang. We have already said this bishop can't move, right? Because then it would just be a checkmate. This queen can't move because the queen is guarding the bishop. This knight can't move because you would add a third attacker to the bishop. Now this rook can't move because the rook is guarding the knight. Same thing for this bishop. This bishop is guarding the knight since you already have two attackers. And this rook can't move because this rook is guarding the bishop. So a tremendous, like I said, Beethoven's perfection. If Beethoven's perfection could be created on a chessboard, this is what it would look like. Okay, and now the rest of the moves are actually pretty common. So Anand went for rook to b5, attacking the bishop, but of course you do still get bishop to c6, adding a second attacker, and the rest of the moves are just a beautiful tactical. And just to clinch this, in the most gracious style and pizzazz. So you get rook captures on f5, finally going for some counterplay. But you have rook captures on c8. It is important that you captures on c8 first, because then you want to be up in terms of the positional advantage, and we'll see this. So you get rook captures on c8, rook captures on c8, bishop captures on d8. I'm sorry, bishop captures on c7, forking the bishop captures on d7, forking the rook on c8 and f5. And now it doesn't really matter which rook you try to save. Vishy says, okay, fine, I'll save my rook on c8. So he goes for rook to c5, bishop captures on f5, rook captures on f5, and Judith plays a beautiful move here, and it is one of the best moves of the game. And she just goes for a quiet move like rook to d1 with a checkmate in one. So Anand says, okay, fine, now I'll try to run away with my king. So he plays king to g8. That would be kind of the escape squares, right? But after Judith plays queen to g2, on move 34, Viswanathan Anand, one of the greatest players of all time, resigns the game. Why did he resign the game? Well, there's no way for you to save queen captures on f4, and this would be a checkmate, right? So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this beautiful mastery by Judit Polgar. And I hope now you can appreciate that I'm not just one of the homers who only roots for Indian chess or Indian players in chess and only roots for Viswanathan Anand. I wanted to pick these games just so I can prove that I'm less of a homer than you think. But yeah, no, I love me some Viswanathan Anand. I love me some Fabiano Caruana. It's the two countries that I've known my entire life, India and USA. So it makes sense. But yeah, no. So I hope you guys can appreciate just some of the beauty of Judit Polgar in our video, in our tribute video, in this particular analysis of this masterful game. You could see probably hundreds of games where Judit has just put on an absolute clinic aggressively. And finally, even though as I've said it before, I'll repeat myself again, the legacy of Judit Polgar will remain in the future generations to come, the same way Viswanathan Anand's legacy has been in the presence, the current presence that we're witnessing with chess in India and even the future. And I very much hope that in the near future, there will be parents or there will be a parent in Atlanta, Georgia, or in Chicago, Illinois, that can raise a daughter, that can raise a young girl who falls in love with chess at the age of 5 or even at the age of 3, just like Judit Polgar did. And she goes on to become the world champion and attains that #1 ranking in her career. And she becomes the first woman to do so. So the same way Anand defied the statistical odds and became that example, I hope this future girl, this future woman goes on to do the same thing, at least in my lifetime, just so I can come back to this video, or you all can come back to this video and pay this marvelous tribute again to Judit Polgar in some future date and time. So, in the end, thank you very much for all your support. If you want to be a part of our healthcare, our support to the healthcare heroes and some of the things that we're seeing right now transpire in the world, there is a PayPal link, there's a Venmo ID in the description box below. If you want us to help us support and just grow the channel, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and of course share this video with as many friends, as many family, as many coworkers as possible, and just help us grow so we can continue to provide excellent in-depth analysis of all the amazing games that are played and all the amazing things that are being currently done in the chess community. Thank you very much. Hope you guys have a good night. Stay tuned for our next video. Thank you.